Hello, I'm Kamal Santamaria. This is Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera, your weekly look at the world of business and finance. This week, the secret's out. You can't hide your money in Switzerland.
I'm Nick Spicer in Bern, where new treaties mean time is running out for Switzerland's status as the world's biggest tax haven.
Also, fishing in pirates' waters, why Somalia is being pressed to create a new economic zone as fishing experiences a boom. And in sport, just what are these sportsmen actually worth? Can a goal, a birdie or a knockout really get the money rolling in? You know, a former UBS banker spent 2.5 years in prison for helping wealthy Americans avoid paying their taxes. It is a story that would have gone unnoticed if it hadn't been for the fact that the Inland Revenue Service awarded that man, it was Bradley Birkenfeld, $104 million for revealing the secrets of the Swiss banking industry. It's believed to be the biggest whistleblower award ever and heralded a new era, really. No longer could the Swiss banking industry keep its secrets. And now we find it just keeps getting tougher. UBS, the Swiss bank at the centre of Birkenfeld's whistleblowing, agreed to pay a $780 million fine. And the US is still investigating more Swiss banks. Other nations are now pursuing the Swiss banks, including the UK, Austria and Germany, all keen on clawing back tax on some of the $2 trillion of wealth that foreign clients have stashed away there. But how are the Swiss responding to all this? Is their famous neutrality still intact? That's what we're looking at this week. Nick Spicer takes us through the story.
For centuries, a peaceful haven. Its mountains wrapped in majestic mystery, and its banking in centuries of secrecy. But for the world's tax cheats, Switzerland is now a paradise lost. Foreign governments are prying open the $2 trillion offshore banking business here with tax treaties. The man who negotiated some of the deals for the Swiss says foreign money is still welcome, of course, but not like before.
The clients have to be tax compliant. The banking secrecy should not be misused in order to put untaxed or criminal money into Swiss banks.
The deals with the United Kingdom, Austria and Germany will allow foreign clients to remain anonymous. But the Swiss banks and government will collect one-off tax on their accounts, averaging 25% for the foreign governments. In the future, the Swiss will tax foreign accounts' interest and dividends at British, Austrian and German tax rates. The tax treaties have hurt many Swiss in their pride, even sparking some anger. One group tried but failed to organize a referendum to have them overturned. Here in the capital, Bern, there are some powerful voices in Parliament saying the treaties never should have happened. They include members of the Swiss People's Party.
I do not welcome that we have to collect taxes for foreign states. I mean, no state has suffered such a humiliation. That's incredible. And finally, through the back door, we introduce in Switzerland the capital gains tax.
Swiss banks are fighting to keep their clients by explaining the advantages of the treaties.
Both options ensure that the client's tax liabilities have been fully met.
A 1934 law makes it illegal to reveal who owns a bank account, but secrecy is more than a legal issue here.
Bank client secrecy is something that is very, very precious for the Swiss banks because the protection of clients' assets is something in their DNA. This is something which is quite important to the banks.
It's the American tax authority, the IRS, that has put the most pressure on the Swiss. Using information from a turncoat banker nicknamed Tarantula, the agency fined the UBS bank $780 million for helping tax evaders.
And do what I did to expose the largest tax fraud in the world.
German tax authorities have bought CDs of stolen account information to get the inside track on their country's tax evaders.
so circa 10%.
This one says that and public pressure pushed Switzerland to make a deal, and that Germany can expect a windfall.
Die Schätzungen, die deutsche Steuergewerkschaft.
The German tax union is estimating that between 120 and 150 billion euros are kept in Switzerland.
The Austrian and British treaties have already been ratified and will come into effect on January the 1st. In Germany, there's a problem, however. Socialists don't like the Swiss-German tax treaty, calling it a gift to rich people. So the final vote on ratification in November could be a very close one. Nick Spicer, Counting the Cost, Berlin.
Well, there's some nice timing with this issue because this week we had some time with the former president of Switzerland, Kaspar Villiger. Now, more than just a politician, he's previously been the chairman of the Swiss banking giant UBS, so he's very familiar with the banking and taxation sector. We started, though, by chatting about Switzerland's place in Europe, an island in a sea of drama, remembering Switzerland is neither a member of the EU nor the Eurozone, but does most of its business there.
Yes, 60% of our exports go to the to the EU, not to the Eurozone alone, but to the EU. This is quite a lot, and 50% of our welfare, of our wealth, is created by exports. That means Europe is very important for us. And the main problem we had was the appreciation of the Swiss franc. Because of the trouble and the turbulences within the euro space, of course, Switzerland was a kind of safe haven, and a lot of people wanted Swiss francs, and this created really a problem for our export industry because the franc was very much overvalued. You know then that the central bank decided to fix a lower limit of the Swiss franc of 1 franc 20. And this works. I think with this value, the Swiss franc is still overvalued, but at least the companies have security for planning. They can plan now, they can judge, assess the future.
So
and it seems to work.
You're effectively pegged to the euro then now?
Only in one direction, not in the other. Only it's a lower limit. But it's, of course, it needed a lot of work to be done by the central bank. They had to buy euros, of course. Now it calmed a bit, and the course is a little bit higher, 121. That's now a natural equilibrium, to say so. But it seems that the economy can live with that. I think our economy is quite in a strong position. The exporters have products that do not so too much depend on the price because they are very specialized, and we have also a very diversified client. We are still very dependent from Europe, but for instance, the client in the emerging markets have grown. The percentage of them has grown in the last couple of years. That means we are better diversified than a couple of years ago. The economic situation of Switzerland is quite good. Unemployment less than 3%, which is maybe a record in Europe. Very good situation, but of course we do not know what the future will bring, and certainly our companies will have to fight to live in this very challenging environment.
Let's talk about some of those clients then that you refer to from other parts of the world, from Europe and from emerging markets. The simple fact is the tax environment is a lot of the reason that people come to Switzerland. Do you worry about damage being done to Switzerland's reputation? Because everyone seems to be going after the Swiss banks, the Swiss tax laws at the moment.
The only reputational problem was the non-taxed money coming to Switzerland. And you know that here the bank secrecy was modified in the last couple of years steadily. During my time we did a lot. For instance, the savings agreement with with the European Union. And I think today the Swiss financial center is really clean in the way that dirty money, money from international crime, money from drug traffic, I think there is less in Switzerland than in other countries. I think we did a lot of work to avoid that. And now this tax avoidance is no more accepted, and that's the reason why we develop further the Swiss banking secrecy, and it's almost no more possible to come to Switzerland with money which is not taxed.
So you think these treaties which are being signed up at the moment, they're the right idea, they're the right way to go?
That's now a treaty only with a couple of European countries like Germany, Great Britain or Austria. Yeah. I think it's a good system because you can combine confidentiality with tax honesty. I think also financial confidentiality is a kind of a human right. I think we do not want to have the totally transparent citizen. On the other hand, I do not understand if people do not pay their taxes. I was Minister of Finance and I always thought tax evasion and tax fraud is something that is really that people shouldn't do. That is not just against the other taxpayers. And I think this combination with a withholding tax, that these people pay the tax but can remain confidential, is a good compromise. But importantly, it is that we can solve the legacy problems, that the people which have untaxed money can tax that in a proper way, that they have a clean situation, that in the future we do not accept any more untaxed money.
Okay, let me give you an example which I read about just today. Caused a bit of interest in the United Kingdom, and that is Starbucks, the world famous coffee chain. The word that came out that they've not been paying taxes in the UK for the last 3 years. And it's all legal, but one of the ways they've done it is by using a company based in Switzerland to purchase all their coffee beans for the European market. Now again, it's all legal, but that kind of thing raises the ire of people when they hear that, and it sounds like avoidance, even though it's all legal. Again, is there a perception problem here for Switzerland that it's making this sort of thing too easy?
We have one problem with the European Union regarding the not equal treating of some holding companies in Europe and in Switzerland. And there is a discussion to solve that. But I must clearly say that to have lower taxes than others is not bad, because I think tax competition is a good thing. If Switzerland has a comparably low taxation, that's not because we are politically wiser than others. That's because we have cantons competing, financially autonomous cantons competing between each other, and they have to watch like a private company to offer to their citizens a good price-performance ratio. And this disciplines, of course, also the government side, and I think this creates more wealth, this gives more space for the private economy, and I would recommend strongly to other countries to do the same thing. I think a lot of problems in the Eurozone are problems because of too high taxation. If you have too high taxation, you have less space for the initiative of private people, and that's not good for the whole country. And that's the reason why I think this competition, if you treat foreigners and their own companies on the same way, you cannot criticize that.
What do you think about this part of the world, though, seeing as you're visiting here? I mean, years ago, it used to be Switzerland was seen as the if you're talking about tax havens, if I use that word, that was the place. But now it's the Dohas, the Dubais, the Abu Dhabis of this world. Have they got something to learn from
I think
the Swiss model? Or?
The one thing we can recommend them from the beginning to try to have really a clean financial center. That's what we do now, and I think if there are left some spots of not tax money, we have to solve these problems, and it's better not to begin with that. But on the other hand, of course, I have not to criticize if others try to compete with us. I'm convinced that competition is a vital element of success, that competition keeps us alive, and that's the reason why we follow with a lot of interest what they are doing here, and I think they have the chance to do a good job also here.
A wonderfully diplomatic answer. Mr. Villiger,
okay,
thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Santa Maria. It was a pleasure.
We want to look at Somalia now, where, aside from the years of political instability, one of the first things you tend to think about is piracy. Nothing ragtag about it. It's a well-organised industry, really, worth millions of dollars. And Somalia has been at the heart of it. It's meant the shipping and the fishing industry has taken a real hit, but now that things are starting to settle down on land, fishermen are keen to push the boat out even further to get their livelihoods back. This from Nazanin Mashiri.
Returning from sea with a prized catch, this fisherman has caught a swordfish. Too heavy to carry by hand, he carefully places it on his head and sets off for the fish market. SHAF Noors says they can only venture out 3 kilometres from shore. Beyond that, naval patrols could mistake them for pirates.
On a good day, we earn 200,000 Somali shillings. That's $10. We hope the government can provide coast guards who can protect us and ensure that we can go deeper out to sea.
At the moment, Somali waters are basically a free-for-all for pirates, for big fishing vessels, and for ships dumping toxic and even nuclear waste. The international community says the only solution is an exclusive economic zone so Somalis can manage their own natural resources. Previous Somali governments have rejected the idea, fearing the country could lose its sovereignty. There are also questions over how the zone would be secured. But the United Nations says signing up would be good for Somalia's economy.
To have this in place will permit you to have, for example, licensing of foreign fleets fishing in the area in a legal way, getting revenue for the country, which is something that many people say that has been a trigger for piracy.
At the fish market, the swordfish is quickly cut into pieces, ready to be sold. 1 kilogram costs around $4. A shark can fetch anything up to $1,000. A number of new hotels and the ever-growing Turkish community in town is driving demand upwards.
Before the war, this market was full of people. Then during the conflict, everyone went away. And now we're selling fish again and receiving many different species like kingfish, white and red snappers and sharks.
Somalia's 3,000-kilometre coastline, the longest in Africa, has been both a curse and a blessing to its people. Without security and proper equipment and training for its fishermen, this vital industry will never set sail.
Big news in sport recently, the apparent downfall of cyclist Lance Armstrong, 7-time Tour de France winner who was implicated by 11 former teammates in what may just be the biggest drug scandal in sport ever. Now, aside from the disgrace, there's another factor playing out here. Armstrong's sponsors have been dropping him like hotcakes. Brewing giant Anheuser-Busch was very matter-of-fact, simply saying, we have decided not to renew our relationship with Lance Armstrong when our current contract expires at the end of 2012. But major sponsor Nike was clearly hurt due to the seemingly insurmountable evidence that Lance Armstrong participated in doping and misled Nike for more than a decade. It is with great sadness that we have terminated our contract with him. Nike's reaction is entirely understandable because this is big money we're talking about. In fact, the whole business of sports endorsement is arguably becoming bigger than the sport itself. We've got Hazem Seeker over at the video wall right now who's been taking a closer look at all of this. Hazem.
Kamal, the world's top sports stars make it look so easy, don't they? Score a goal, land a knockout punch, and make that all-important birdie and watch the money roll in. Of course, there's a little more to it than that, like years of practice, hard work and tireless dedication. But some athletes have managed to take their earning power to another level thanks to the world of commercial endorsements. Here are 3 of the biggest deals that we know of. In 2003, English footballer David Beckham signed the biggest commercial contract in sports history with Adidas. If Beckham lives another 40 years, the sports shoemaker will have paid him an estimated $160 million. And in total, he makes around $20 million in all endorsements. The lean, mean grilling machine has given former heavyweight boxer George Foreman one hefty bank account. In 1999, he agreed to sell his name to grill maker Sultan and now makes more than he ever did in his boxing heyday. And after turning professional in 1996, Tiger Woods signed a 5-year, $40 million contract with Nike. He appeared in many of the sport apparel makers' advertisements and established his own brand of clothing and shoes. Woods also helped make Nike a big splash in the golf equipment business. And despite his private life scandals from a couple of years ago and his fall in the world rankings, Tiger still managed to be the 3rd highest total earner in 2011, behind boxers Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. Well, joining us now to talk more about this from Glasgow is Alan Ferguson. He's Managing Director of the sports business. Alan, thank you for being with us. So what is it that makes an athlete marketable? Because it's more than just performance, it's image and personality as well.
Well, I think that the success is the major issue in making any athlete attractive to brands and sponsoring companies. There are obviously other elements if they are an outgoing personality, if they're involved in a glamorous sport. You know, in the UK we have an open tennis champion now who appeared on the scene as a geeky, spotty 18, 19-year-old who's not that outgoing. He's a very shy man, but his ability and his success has made him very valuable to a growing list of sponsors.
You're talking, of course, about Andy Murray, and I'm glad you brought him up because I wanted to ask you about him. If you look at someone like Andy Murray, who won the US Open last month, the first Grand Slam title of his career, does that now put him right up there with the big boys in terms of his commercial earning potential in the sport of tennis?
Well, he's got one slam as opposed to the double digits of Federer and Nadal, so he's got a bit of catching up to do. But, you know, he's appeared in a number of finals. I think he's shown his tennis credentials. And in a marketing context, he has many attributes and many positives going for him. You know, he's, you know, he comes from Britain. He won in America. He's very well liked in America. He won the Junior US in New York in 2004. He's gone back 8 years later and won the big title at a time when Roddick has disappeared. So they're looking for another tennis hero. And the Scots in America are well liked. So, you know, that gives him a big pulling power. Plus, you know, he's a native English speaker. He's not from Switzerland or Serbia or Spain like the others in the top four. So, and he comes across as just a genuine guy. And he has been very loyal to his sponsors who founded him and funded him in the early stages of his career. But he's an interesting character because the commercial side won't drive him. His management team, and he has a very powerful global management team who look after Beckham and Lewis Hamilton, who they've just moved from a seat in a McLaren car to Mercedes. They will have a plan for him, but if it interfered with his game and his preparation and his practice, Murray's more likely to either say no or curtail what the sponsor might be looking for. So they might have to look for a different kind of association with him.
Let's talk about Lewis Hamilton as well. His decision to race for Mercedes next year. He says it's all about the car and that he wants to be racing in a car that will make him world champion. But there's no denying the global brand name appeal of Mercedes over McLaren, his current team, which is basically a niche brand when it comes to cars on the road. What's significant about that decision, do you think?
Well, I think it's driven by his advisors, and that's not a criticism because if they're looking to maximise his potential, and he operates in a very dangerous and risky business, he's looking to exercise his potential, and obviously, as you say, Mercedes is a glamorous, high-value global automotive brand. And he will be a much bigger figure around the world via Mercedes. But interestingly, he has always complained about the demands of sponsors and the commercial and corporate timetable that he has to dovetail into his preparation for races. But that's the way it is in Formula One. Formula One wouldn't exist without the corporate world if it wasn't for manufacturers supplying engines and cars and the research and development money and sponsors funding the team and the drivers. He wouldn't be in the sport at that level. But it's a huge step up for him as a kind of sponsor's tool to work with Mercedes.
Finally, we've spent a lot of time talking about things like brand appeal and marketing, and there's no denying that sport is a business as much as it is a game. But one of the biggest complaints that you hear from ordinary fans, particularly fans of team sports, is that there's too much money flowing around, from the players to the club owners to the TV networks, who are all making plenty of money, and it's the average fan who's getting the short end of it with things like paying higher ticket prices, paying more for replica shirts and so on. Is that a fair criticism, do you think?
Well, certainly in the UK there's a new round of television deals coming in which see a spectacular increase in the amount of money coming into the game, which no doubt will finish up in the back pockets of players, and it's an issue, it's a social issue, I think, especially in times of economic difficulty. But there again, there are, for everyone who attends a match or buys a shirt, there are millions more who still enjoy following the sport without necessarily meeting those costs. And would the enjoyment level and the quality of players increase if that money wasn't there? I think it is a dilemma, but is it any different from, you know, a pop singer making a fortune and, you know, people having to buy tickets for concerts or the cost of downloads?
Alan Ferguson from the sports business. Alan, thanks for your time. So there you have it, Kamal, striking that balance between the pressure to make money while keeping the fans on side.
Yes, thank you very much indeed for that, Hazem. We do appreciate it. And on that note, we're all done for this week. Do drop us a line, though, if you want to get in touch. Twitter's probably the easiest way. @KamalAJE is my name on Twitter, and @AbidOliver Ali is our business editor. If you're not on Twitter, Counting the Cost at aljazeera.net is just fine on the email. While you're online, you can always head to aljazeera.com/business. You can link on to the CTC page there. We put all our episodes up in full for you whenever you want to catch up on those. But that is it for this edition of Counting the Cost. I'm Kamal Santamaria from the whole team. Thanks for joining us. The news on Al Jazeera is next.